Welcome back to Chat Like a Native. Over the next bit of time, you're going to learn how to instantly sound more fluent, calm, and, confident in English. And you're going to do it without simply speaking faster.
Right, because the ultimate goal of everything we are covering today really boils down to one incredibly powerful concept, and that is listener comfort.
Listener comfort. I love that.
Yeah, the objective is to make it effortlessly easy for people to understand and engage with your ideas.
Because, frankly, we're completely dismantling the myth that fast English is fluent English.
Yeah.
It's just not true.
No, not at all. Instead, natural fluency actually comes from rhythm. It comes from using small strategic pauses and from speaking in what are known as meaning units rather than just reading out sentences word by word.
Exactly. And we are going to break down exactly how you can find this natural rhythm using a highly specific three-step formula.
It's a great formula.
It really is. To lock this in your mind right from the start, I want you to remember a punchy mnemonic, and that is GSS. That stands for group the meaning, stress the power, shadow the rhythm. Group, stress, shadow. GSS.
It is a framework that, honestly, it shifts the entire foundation of how you deliver your words.
Yeah.
When you master it, the language stops feeling like a mechanical task and starts feeling like a natural extension of your own voice.
Because I know for you listening right now, speed probably feels like the ultimate goal. I mean, the logic usually goes, well, if I can just push out more words in less time, I'll sound like a native.
Which is such a common trap.
It is. So why is that urge to speed up actually your worst enemy?
Because speaking quickly without the correct underlying structure completely destroys clarity. I mean, just think about the physics of sound. When you rush, your words physically crash into one another.
Right, they just mash together.
Exactly. The natural melody of the sentence flattens out into this monotonous blur. And the biggest casualty here is the person you were talking to. It exhausts the listener.
Oh, for sure.
They have to work incredibly hard to untangle this massive wall of sound just to figure out what your core message is.
Okay, let's unpack this because it's really an issue of cognitive overload. It reminds me of, how impossible it is to memorize a 10-digit phone number if someone just rattles off the individual digits.
Oh, absolutely.
If a friend gives you a number with equal robotic timing between every single number, like 61482950337, your brain just panics.
Yeah, you can't hold on to it.
Right.
Your working memory has limits. When there is no pattern to grab onto, the brain essentially shuts down to protect itself from information overload.
But if they group that exact same string of numbers organically, like 61482950337, suddenly it's effortless. Your brain just accepts it.
Spoken language operates on the exact same psychological principle. Listeners simply do not process language word by word.
They process it in meaning units.
Yes. If you throw 20 isolated words at someone in 5 seconds, they will miss the point. But if you throw 4 distinct ideas at them, they follow along perfectly.
Okay, so grouping gives us the physical blocks. That leads us straight into the G in our GSS formula, which is grouping the meaning.
Right.
So how do we actually take a chaotic sentence and organize it into these units?
Well, we rely on what linguists call thought groups. These are small clusters of words, usually around, I'd say, 3 to 7 words, that naturally belong together to form a single idea.
Okay.
It is a fundamental shift from speaking vocabulary by vocabulary to speaking idea by idea. Imagine how a beginner might read a simple story. They might say, when I got home from work, I made dinner and called my brother.
Wow, yeah, every single word feels completely isolated there. You hear the vocabulary, sure, but the narrative is totally lost in all those separate choppy blocks.
Now apply thought groups to that exact same sentence. Yeah. When I got home from work, I made dinner and called my brother.
The difference is striking. I mean, it actually feels like a story now.
The sentence now has 3 natural thought groups. Each group carries one small piece of meaning. Inside those groups, the words flow together, and between the groups, there is a pause.
But we should probably define what a pause actually is here.
Yes, very important. This shouldn't be a full, heavy stop where you drop your voice and take a huge breath. It is a gentle lift.
A gentle lift.
Just a tiny space in the air for the listener to process what was just said before you move to the next unit.
Okay, but let's be real for a second. If I'm in a high-pressure business meeting, I don't have the luxury of time to mathematically calculate my thought groups before I speak.
No, of course not.
Doesn't trying to map out grammatical rules for where to pause just make you freeze up and stutter more?
It absolutely would if you were relying on strict grammatical rules, but meaning is the only real metric here.
Yeah.
What's fascinating here is that, yes, there are helpful patterns. We naturally pause after introductory phrases or before adding extra information or between a series of actions. But ultimately, a good thought group should just feel like one complete small idea. You don't need a whiteboard to calculate it. You just need to ask yourself, does this fragment convey a single thought?
Can we look at an example of where a pause completely breaks that rule of meaning?
Sure. Imagine someone at that high-pressure business meeting says, I need to finish the report before the meeting starts.
Oof, that feels deeply uncomfortable to listen to. I immediately feel anxious for the person speaking.
Right, because the pauses are severing the ideas in half. I need to what? Finish the report before what? It forces the listener to hold broken fragments of ideas in their working memory until you finish the sentence.
It creates a lot of tension.
It does. A much better grouping relies on the logic of the action. I need to finish the report before the meeting starts. Clear, logical, and effortless to process.
So grouping solves the physical structure. It breaks the sentence into digestible blocks. But I'm thinking about the sound itself. If I group perfectly, but read those groups like a flat GPS navigation voice, well, I haven't really solved the problem. It still sounds unnatural.
Which means we have to talk about the melody inside those blocks. This brings us to the first S in our GSS formula, stress.
Stress.
We need to know which words within that thought group to emphasize. And to understand this, we need to look at the underlying mechanics of how English operates compared to many other languages.
This is where we get into the difference between syllable-timed and stress-timed languages, right?
Exactly. If your native language is Spanish, French, or Japanese, you are likely used to a syllable-timed language. In those languages, almost every single syllable gets the exact same amount of time and weight.
Okay.
It functions like a metronome, tick, 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 tick.
Yeah.
It's very even and predictable.
But English doesn't behave like a metronome.
Not at all. English is a stress-timed language. It operates much more like a heartbeat. Thump, thump, thump. Not every word receives the same amount of power or time. The heavy lifters are the meaning words.
The verbs, the nouns, the adjectives, the words that actually carry the picture in the listener's head, those are the strong words.
Yeah.
And the grammar words, the prepositions, articles, conjunctions like to, at, because, those become softer.
Yes, and this clash between syllable time habits and stress-timed English is where we see a massive breakdown in communication.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You will often hear people try to ensure they are being clear by applying their native metronome to English, shouting every single word with equal force.
Like, I want to improve my English speaking skills.
It sounds aggressive to a native ear.
Yeah.
And ironically, it's exhausting to listen to because the listener has to sort through all that volume to find the actual meaning.
Right.
Natural English requires contrast. Strong words only feel strong because the other words around them shrink. A much more natural heartbeat delivery is, I want to improve my English speaking skills.
The meaning words pop out and the grammar words shrink down. But I have to ask, if I make the grammar words softer, won't I just sound like I'm mumbling? I mean, I don't want to sound careless or like I don't know the vocabulary.
This raises an important question, but making those smaller words softer does not mean they disappear. And it certainly doesn't mean you are mumbling. It simply means those words are supporting the sentence rather than controlling it.
Okay, supporting, not controlling.
Think of it like a piece of music. If every single instrument plays at maximum volume the entire time, nothing feels special. There's no melody, just noise. The listener uses those stressed, louder words as stepping stones to cross the sentence. The softer words are just the water flowing between them.
It's fascinating how shifting that decibel level can completely change the actual literal meaning of what you were saying. Let's look at the sentence. I didn't say he took the money. 5 words of meaning, and we can create 5 completely different accusations depending entirely on the stress.
Yeah, let's analyze it clinically. If I place the decibel spike on the first word, I didn't say he took the money.
The literal words are the same, but the implication shifts to deflection. You are signaling that someone else said it. You're removing yourself from the accusation.
Now we shift the volume to the verb. I didn't say he took the money.
Oh, the legal meaning changes. You might have suggested it or pointed at him or written it in an email, but you didn't literally speak the words out loud.
Third variation. We stress the pronoun. I didn't say he took the money.
Now you are confirming the money is gone, but you are pointing the finger at someone else. The person in question is innocent.
Fourth variation. Stressing the action. I didn't say he took the money.
You are clarifying the nature of the action. He didn't steal it, maybe he borrowed it, or moved it to a secure account.
And finally, stressing the object. It didn't say he took the money.
He took the car. He took the documents.
Exactly.
Same exact words on the page, but 5 completely different legal and social realities, all controlled by which word you chose to give power to.
This is why stress is not just a nice bonus for sounding elegant. It is a vital tool for accuracy. It tells the listener what matters most. It guides their ear directly to your core intention.
All right, so we have the theory down. G for grouping the meaning to create the physical structure. S for stressing the power words to create the heartbeat. But understanding the theory of a heartbeat is very different from making your own heartbeat in a new rhythm. How do you train your physical mouth to do this in real time?
That requires the final S in GSS, which is shadowing. You have to let your ears take over the learning process, entirely bypassing your eyes.
Let's define shadowing clearly, because it's not just repeating after a recording like a parrot. It means listening to a speaker and speaking at almost the exact same time, copying their physical movement, their pauses, and their decibel shifts.
When you read a text, your eyes control the language. You naturally want to pronounce every written letter carefully, and you rely on visual punctuation to tell you when to breathe.
Right, the commas and periods.
But commas and periods are terrible guides for spoken rhythm. When you shadow, your ears become the teacher. You start hearing English as acoustic music, not as a visual grammar formula.
You notice that native speakers don't treat every word equally. If a speaker says, actually, I think we should wait until we have more information, you don't just memorize the vocabulary, you copy the exact acoustic movement. Actually, I think we should wait until we have more information.
And this specific practice tackles one of the biggest psychological hurdles you are likely facing, which is the absolute terror of silence.
Oh, yes.
So many people rush because they are intensely anxious. They feel that silence is dangerous. They assume a pause signals to the listener that they are failing, that they've forgotten a word, and that they are about to lose the floor.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because reevaluating silence is a massive paradigm shift. The reality is the exact opposite of that fear. Native and fluent speakers use silence constantly. A pause isn't a mistake or a sign of weakness. A pause is a tool of authority.
It is a critical tool. You use it to organize your ideas, to highlight meaning, and to make your speech easier for the other person to digest. When you start using thought groups and shadowing natural rhythm, you stop fighting silence.
You embrace it.
You begin using it to sound calmer, more in control, and honestly, you buy yourself precious seconds to mentally map out your next word.
Instead of trying to push out a massive sentence on one breath and panicking halfway through because you lost your train of thought, you build the sentence piece by piece.
I agree with your point, but I think we need to look at the cost before we make a final decision. It sounds infinitely more controlled than rushing through the entire string of words in a panic.
And what's brilliant about shadowing is that it doesn't just fix your mouth. It completely rewires your ears.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, mastering thought groups transforms your listening skills. When you deeply understand how meaning is grouped, you stop trying to catch every single word a fast-talking native speaker says.
Which is an exhausting and basically impossible task anyway.
Exactly. Instead, you start listening for the chunks of meaning. You hear the main idea, then the reason, then the contrast. You hear the structure of their thoughts, rather than a machine gun fire of individual vocabulary words.
It's like looking at a constellation in the night sky instead of just random stars. You stop trying to count every individual dot of light and start seeing the shape of the Big Dipper. So we have GSS group, stress, shadow. We know the theory, we know the mechanics. Let's make this actionable. Let's transition into a concrete 10-minute daily practice routine so you can start applying this today.
The routine is incredibly simple, but it demands deep focus. First, choose just 20 to 40 seconds of clear English audio. Find a speaker you genuinely understand and whose voice you like. Listen to the clip once just to grasp the overall meaning.
Okay.
Then get the transcript in front of you. Listen a second time and use a pen to physically draw slashes where the speaker pauses. You are mapping out the thought groups.
Then you listen a third time and underline the stressed words, the ones that carry the decibel spike.
Now you have a visual map of the rhythm. Finally, shadow one sentence at a time, repeating it 3 to 5 times, matching the speaker's exact timing, pausing where they pause, spiking where they spike. Then record your own voice and compare it to the original.
And when you compare, we need to be very clear about this. Do not obsess over your accent. You are comparing the rhythm. Did you pause in similar places? Did you stress the important words? Did your sentence sound like one smooth idea flowing into the next, or a bunch of separate choppy words?
And we must warn you about the most common pitfall people face when starting this routine.
Oh, trying to shadow an entire 2-hour movie or a massive, complex political speech?
Yes. People try to shadow pages and pages of text at once. It is deeply frustrating and highly ineffective. Quality matters so much more than quantity here. Mastering the precise rhythm of one single sentence can teach you more about the mechanics of spoken English than rushing sloppily through a whole book.
Let's actually demonstrate this right now with 4 specific practice sentences. Let's show you how to take a flat metronome sentence and apply the GSS mechanics to it. Sentence number 1. If I just read the words with equal weight, I'm not sure if this is the best option for us right now. Flat, monotonous, hard to process. How do we group and stress it?
The thought groups would fall naturally according to the logic of the ideas.
Hmm.
I'm not sure if this is the best option for us right now. And the stressed words, the meaning carriers would be sure. Best option, us, and right now.
So the natural heartbeat version sounds like, I'm not sure if this is the best option for US right now.
Perfect. Sentence 2. The flat syllable-timed reading is, could you send me the file when you have a chance?
Grouping it by action and condition we get, could you send me the file when you have a chance? Stressing send, file, and chance. The grammar words shrink, so it becomes, could you send me the file when you have a chance?
Sentence 3. Flat reading. The main problem is that we don't have enough time.
We break that right at the verb. The main problem is that we don't have enough time. Stressing the core issues, main problem don't, and enough time. The main problem is that we don't have enough time.
In our final example, flat reading. I wanted to call you earlier, but I was in a meeting.
Break it at the contrast right before the but. I wanted to call you earlier, but I was in a meeting. Stressing the actions and the reason. Wanted, call, earlier, and meeting. I wanted to call you earlier, but I was in a meeting.
Notice how organized and calm that feels. Clear English isn't about utilizing highly complicated academic vocabulary. It is simply about organization and giving the listener time to process.
So what does this all mean? It means the ultimate goal of your language journey is not perfect, flawless, native-like pronunciation. The goal is listener comfort. You want the person listening to you to relax. If your speech is too choppy, they get distracted by the effort of putting the pieces together. If it's too rushed, they miss the point entirely. If your stress is flat, they don't know what is actually important.
But when you use thought groups and natural stress, you solve all 3 of those problems instantly. You sound smooth, but not rushed. You sound clear, but not robotic. You sound like a much more confident, authoritative version of yourself.
Start pushing word after word out of your mouth like a machine, trying to break a speed record. Guide your listener through your meaning using GSS Group the Meaning. Stress the power. Shadow the rhythm.
We have a 7-day challenge for you. Dedicate just 10 minutes a day. Find a 30-second audio clip. Mark the groups, underline the stress, and shadow it. Record yourself. Do this consistently for just 1 week.
By day 7, you will stop trying to logically calculate English rhythm, and you will actually start to physically feel it in your jaw and your breath.
Your entire delivery will change. The rushing will subside and the clarity will take over.
It is a total game changer for your confidence in any conversation. And as we wrap this up, I want to leave you with a slightly provocative thought to chew on today. We've talked all about how mastering this rhythm allows you to comfortably organize your speech into structured thought groups to help other people understand you. But here is the question. If you practice this every single day, physically training your brain to group ideas logically and highlight only the most important meaning, does practicing this actually rewire the way you structure your own internal thoughts before you even open your mouth?
That is a fascinating psychological mechanism to consider.
Something to ponder as you start your 7-day shadowing challenge. Good luck with the practice, and we'll see you next time.